Hello, this is Travis Ritchie. I play Inspector Spacetime, and you're listening to Mark Who 42.
Welcome to Mark Who 42's Whoniverse. Yes, I said Whoniverse. What are you going to do? Sue me? I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me today are
Vicky Jacobowski.
Hey, Vicky.
Hello.
We had a great time the other day doing Mark Who 77, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we got to talk to two very special people. If you're interested in finding out about Matilda McCormick Sharp and Nigel Parkinson, you can go to the 77 Publications YouTube page, and on the playlist for Mark Who 77, you can find that interview as well as tons and tons of other interviews. If you count 15 other interviews, tons. Who else do we have?
Juan San Miguel from Orlando, Florida.
Hey, Juan. You're not the only person from Orlando on this show, but we'll be getting to that. Who else do we have? Oh, we have the Acolyte of Sutekh online. Hey, Acolyte. Zion. Hey, I just read him as I call him.
No, you didn't get it. It was Scarman. Remember when he's like, Marcus?
Yes, okay. Yeah, you know, and after watching something last night, I should have picked up on that. But thanks for coming, guys. But we have a very special guest today. I've known him since 2012, 2013, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Also coming from the surface of the sun that is Orlando, Florida, I'm Jared Cooper.
Jared, tell everyone where I would know you from, and they might know you from.
I ran a convention in Orlando for about 5 or 6 years called Hurricane Who. I've also been around various other fandoms. You would probably know me as one of the originators of the Star Trek podcast, The Seventh Rule, also the Alpha Quadrant, and various other places.
Nice.
Yeah, I bring Jared on because we are going to be talking. Well, you know, last two episodes, we were talking about the first 6, and actually the Christmas special of Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who adventure. Today, we are going to cover, well, it just ended yesterday for us, or the day before, something like that. We got to talk. Hey, stop it. Don't laugh at me, Vicky. I'm just going to stop there. I'm pulling this over right now. We're going to talk about The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, and maybe something in the middle that might have the initials TOTT. But I wanted to start the episode talking about the characters of the show, the main cast. And I'm going to bring up some main characters, and I want you guys to talk about them. First, we're going to talk about the Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa. What do you think about his role in these 2 episodes?
Well, he's doing the lead. He's being doctory. He's doing his job. I mean, I think he's playing it his own way, and I'm engaged with it. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Vicky?
I would agree. I actually am very much enjoying this Doctor. He's got a lot of characteristics we've seen in various Doctors before. I very much enjoy the emotions we see in this one, which we have seen bits and pieces in other Doctors. You know, Tom Baker had lots of high levels of energy. So did David Tennant. And there was this fierceness in Chris Eccleston and even Matt Smith that I very much enjoy. And I love it because I felt like he was crying with me, and I hate being an emotional person, but I'm sorry, I loved it when I was feeling something, and it just, and there he was with me, and it's like, for someone who's not human, boy, he's very human, and I love that about him.
You know, I agree on that. When I watch Doctor Who, you know how I tell I really like the episode? When it makes me tear up, when it brings great emotion to me. And these stories, all of Ncuti's stories, but yeah, these 2 stories did, especially, gonna get to let you guys know something. Randy, she now, after watching the season, Ncuti's her favorite Doctor, she thinks.
Really?
Really.
I love it.
Jared, any comments on Ncuti Gatwa's portrayal of the Doctor?
Ncuti is absolutely phenomenal, and I am really happy that, as this is a two-part finale, he was front and center the entire time, because a lot of the naysayers of this season really didn't appreciate that you had Dot and Bubble and 73 Yards where you barely saw him the entire time. So having him at full throttle in your face the entire time, out in front throughout this episode and the next, just nails it home how good this guy is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely
I
proves
agree.
that he can act very, very, very well.
So far, he's pulled off everything he's been given.
Yes.
Every single scene.
All right, so we talked about the Doctor. Let's move to, well, who else could we talk about but Ruby Sunday? I'm going to let Vicky talk about Ruby first.
Well, yeah, it was interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend last night about it, and they were equating Ruby to Rose. Now, I was not a fan of Rose when the show rebooted 5,000 years ago.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, I was going to say just recently, but I guess it wasn't really just recently. My problem with Rose was she felt so young, and I wasn't. Let's just be honest. And I just felt like she was so immature, Rose. And I was just, it took a long time for Rose to kind of grow on me. And then I
Right.
loved Rose in her later years as she became that popping in and out kind of character. And she was Bad Wolf, and she was this interesting, magical kind of creature. And who is she and what is she? And I loved that about the character. And now in rewatching, I can respect her a little bit more. But with Ruby, even though she is also exceedingly young, she always struck me as something more. And maybe it's because she is a foster child. Maybe it is because she is a child with more mystery. Maybe, not that Rose did not have tragedy in her life, but it was a different kind of tragedy. And I loved something about Ruby, and the actress just captured me. And I've heard all over the internet all sorts of comparisons, Ruby and Rose, and I do feel like the actors are very different and the characters are written very different. And so there are similarities, but I like Ruby more, and I like Millie more. And I'm glad we're going to get her for one more season, because I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah. We were talking last episode about her naivety. She's very naive, but that doesn't make her immature. That doesn't make her stupid. That just, she's not.
She has a little bit of a rose-colored glass.
If you're an Earthling and if you're an Earthling and you go on a TARDIS and go, you're going to be out of your depth. Totally. So,
oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
I never noticed. I mean, I missed last week's show because of conflict or the last recording. So I don't know. I think Ruby's doing her thing. I mean, I find I never saw her as naive. I mean, she seems to be able to take care of herself, and is able to handle herself, able to adapt to the situation. I'm even trying to strain right now how many if she's ever been rescued or not. So I think she's a modern companion. I mean, she's trying to find out where she's fitting in space. I mean, what I mean is where, finding herself. I mean, that is the age where you should find yourself, or find out what you're good at, or find out what you're. And she seems pretty talented. I always thought that, the scene in her first episode, the band is, and in this episode, she's very crucial to the Doctor's plan of taking care of the problem as we see at the end, and also helping the Doctor deal with the problem. And she gets to figure out her own problem, get a resolution to her own problem.
Yeah, nicely put.
Overall, I was enjoying Ruby, and I just felt like, at least from my point of view, from what I'm given, how I would perceive Ruby outside of like her foster stuff would ultimately come down to what's been dangling, what they're dangling over our heads for the entire season, and like what she is, why she's causing snow, who's her mother, this and that, right?
Yeah.
And overall, when it comes down to the legend of Ruby Sunday, I was actually enjoying the mystery of it, and the fact that
Okay.
like no one could actually see her face, and like
Yeah.
she was facing past the fact that when Ruby looked, and then boom, oh, okay, now I'm over here now, and it was like building towards something, and I was actually into it,
Right.
given that the cliffhanger took it to like a whole nother freaking level. But
Mhm.
like just pertaining to Ruby, I was getting in it. Overall, what they was doing with Ruby during that episode was just really good.
I think that Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday is really, really good. Whenever you
Yeah.
watch her on the screen, that Coronation Street background comes out
Mhm.
in waves. She does interpersonal family drama very, very good. She's really, really great with that. And I think
Yeah.
part of that comes with the core concept of the character. Ruby Sunday is all about connection. She's trying to
Yeah.
reach out and find who her family is.
Mhm.
She's trying to do this, that, and the other. Even in 73 Yards, she's trying to find the doctor. She's all about establishing connections and
Yes.
getting things
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Rose, on the other
Mm.
hand, ran away from her family the first chance she got, forgot about them,
Mhm.
gone,
Yeah.
see you, bye.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the heartbreaking end of Rose is, oh, she has to stay home with her family in this other universe. That's what we're crying over.
Yeah.
Oh.
But,
Nice.
you know, it's like, I think that they are polar ends of the same character, but
Yeah.
Millie's search and bringing in everyone around her has made her that much more likable. And especially throughout that, we had the benefit throughout the seasons of seeing people polar opposite to her. I mean,
Hmm.
look at Lindy from Dot and Bubble.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is easily the type of character that Ruby could have been, but wasn't. And that's a nice comparison of the two.
I find it particularly interesting and like kind of refreshing that like no one on Ruby's side harbors no ill will toward her mother. Because like
Yeah.
it usually goes like, hey, I'm the orphan, and you
Mhm.
abandoned me and such and this, but like there's none of that here. It's just love.
I think for that, that's a good message for that entire adoption community as a whole.
I
Because
agree.
Mhm.
as you pointed out, 95% of the time when you see an adoption story in any medium, oh, they abandoned me, I don't like them, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah.
Yeah.
To see this in a positive method, oh, she did what was best for me, she kept me safe, is
Yeah.
wonderful for that community.
I love
Okay.
that.
Russell really writes what he needs to write, and it is a message.
hmm
Melanie Bush. OMG. Okay. So we talk about characters not being written well. In the 80s, when she was on, her stories, I mean, I liked them, but they were weak to a lot of people. Then in
Yes.
Big Finish, Big Finish, she became the character she needed to be, and now I think she's even surpassed that. Jared, what have you thought about the new representation with Bonnie Langford as Mel?
I am very happy we are getting Big Finish Mel and not 80s TV Mel.
Thank God.
To piggyback off of that, if any of
Mhm.
your listeners haven't listened to Big Finish, I will recommend one of the early Colin and Melanie adventures called The One Doctor.
Yeah.
That is
Mhm.
absolutely phenomenal. Both of them are written well, and that was really the first time in the Big Finish canon that you saw if she was treated well, what type of person could she be. And I also think that having Mel there was interesting. Vicky, you brought up representation of people of a certain age.
hmm
When's the last time you saw a show in any genre have as many lead females over the age of 50 that this one did?
That was fabulous.
Yeah.
I just as a former actress, as somebody of a certain age, and looking at the three women standing in unit who were all of my age demographic or higher, I was sitting there going, oh my God, these people, I mean, they're amazing actresses, amazing characters. And I loved seeing Melanie, just like we saw in the Christmas episode. It was the Christmas episode? I've already forgotten which episode did we first see Melanie in this
The
season?
giggle.
The giggle. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten which one it was. I'm so sorry. But it just, I loved seeing Melanie like this. I had the pleasure of meeting the actress at Gallifrey 1 2 years ago. And it just, to me, it was wonderful seeing this character the way I always knew she should. I didn't know about the Big Finish until 2 years ago. Her character development in the Big Finish until 2 years ago. So it just made me so happy and thrilled and yay.
Vicky,
Yeah.
does this episode pass the Bechdel test?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. Totally.
Yes, it does.
Totally.
Completely.
Yeah.
I was just about to bring that up. If you think back to the scene where Kate ordered all non-essential staff to
Yeah.
depart,
Mm-hmm.
everyone standing at a desk that was left either had a disability or was female.
Yeah.
With the exception of
Yeah.
Colonel Ibrahim and his soldiers in the back. I'm not going to count them because they would just, their job is to stand there.
Yeah.
But the people up front dealing with the problem were either all female or disability.
Yep. And as someone who fits 2 of those criteria, I just, it's something that I've noticed far more in general in British TV. It just seems to flow so much easier. And having just come back from the UK, and I traveled all over the UK in 2 weeks, and the ease with which I traveled versus traveling in the US, other than in my own car, I just was floored about everything. And I loved it. I loved everything about that. And I love Unit, because Unit appears to be, what immediately comes to mind is the image of, Gene Roddenberry's Starfleet. It just, it was the same thing. It was this is our dream. This is what we should look like. This is us. And because it is us, it is the planet, this is reality, and our unit should reflect reality. And I loved it. In the middle of the emotion, I could feel it too, it just, and the fact is that they were badasses. Down to the robot. Or, would you call it a robot or AI?
Oh, who knows what we call it?
Both.
But
Both?
I think
go
it's
with
an, I
both.
think it's an
I'll go
AI
with both.
robot. Yeah, AI.
The thing about Melanie coming back successfully, I think it just shows that your production room environment will affect it, because unfortunately when Melanie came in, the show was in complete chaos. With, Eric Sayward being angry at Jonathan Turner and back, and I don't think they were very clear on the character. And I think by doing her, and trying to do the character right in both, I haven't heard her on Big Finish, but just seeing if this is an extension of what's going on in Big Finish, it just writing for the character, writing enthusiastically for the character. I mean, I think Andrew Cartmel probably tried to do his best, but he had to get scripts out there as quickly. Well, I mean, he wasn't responsible for Time and Ronnie.
Well, that first season, most of the stories were before he even got. I mean, they're always before you come in.
No,
there's always backlog.
No, there was nothing.
Okay. Time in the Ronnie. You just said Time in the Ronnie.
No, but John, I think, because I think John got along with Pip and Jane Baker, or liked him a lot, had him.
I know.
Because I think Time in the Ronnie was going to be originally Colin's last story.
Yeah.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I thought. And then when Colin was going to come back, and then because I think Andrew Cartmel, and it might have either been at one of Jared's conventions or in his book, and he said, I don't take responsibility for Time and Ronnie. That was already there when I got there. Everything else, that's on me.
Right. But he didn't get his chance to go where he wanted to go with the character until the following season. He was kind of steering where he was kind of told, wasn't he?
I don't know. I think there was just a rush for scripts. I mean, I'm basing it on what I remember in John's biography, when we were John's biography, which came out John, the biography that was written about John, and I think season 24 was really rushed. I mean, John was asked to produce it at the last minute, and he had to get everything done rather quickly so there'd be something to shoot when the cameras rolled. So
yeah. But if you sit there and talk about that same era that you're referring to, Juan, you can see the difference between Time in the Rani and Paradise Towers in how she's written,
Mm.
how she's allowed to
Mhm.
handle the character, her performance. What she's allowed to put on in Paradise Towers is very different to Time in the Rani. And because, really she needed to be a caricature in that story so that the Rani could impersonate her. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen this 30, 40-year-old.
Well, the bad thing is, I
Yeah.
was never a big. Unfortunately, I felt that was my low point of Doctor. What
Mhm.
ruined Paradise Towers for me was that dumb pool monster. That's if it wasn't for if it really wasn't for Dragonfire, I think I would have been done with the show at that point.
Mm.
But that's just me.
I'll take the pool monster and the caretakers over Ken Dodd and Delta and the Bannerman any day.
Yes.
Well, you notice I skipped that, so
I can't. Guys, if you want to learn more about the era and John Nathan Turner, we actually did a show on John Nathan Turner back when I guess his biography came out. Episode 134, Hawaiian Shirts and Miniskirts. So go to YouTube, check that out. It's a great story, great episode. We have a round table, and it was just so fun. Okay, so anybody else on mail? Because I want to move to someone else named Kate Stewart.
I will say something that might be blasphemous for a lot of people. I have been
Uh-oh.
a fan of Doctor Who for 30 to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Kate Lethbridge Stewart is officially my favorite Lethbridge Stewart now.
We were talking
Oh.
about that. I remember we were talking about that the other, it was a week or day. Yeah. Tell
Right.
everyone why.
Just better formed, has a more level head on her shoulders. She just doesn't just want to shoot stuff. Shooting stuff is a very last minute
Yeah.
effort. As was
Yeah.
as there's done this. That's the last thing. 5 rounds rapid was her dad's first go-to. It's
Yeah,
her
yeah.
last go-to. And just the relationship that you have with her and the doctor and her and Shooty and the way she's able to speak to him, just I appreciate that so much more.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I also like the idea of her putting together a unit with all of the doctor's cast-offs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really look forward to years down the road. We've got it with Mel, we've got it with Rose Noble. Every time the TARDIS lands there, somebody else from the past is sitting in a chair
Yeah.
somewhere doing something.
We had Tegan and we had Ace.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, to build on that, it was really nice to see that like she lost a single person and she got legitimately pissed at the
Mm.
doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
To build on that the general, I personally would think like he'd want to find out if what's behind the corner, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
a certain person and whatnot. But like she was actually reluctant to say, well, why? We could just stay here and just watch it.
She's the new form of, when you think about the old form of the general, the old form who would sit back, shall we say, here in the US, we'd say in the Pentagon, they'd be sitting back in the Pentagon, shouting all the orders, sending the troops to go take the hill, regardless of the casualties and everything else. The new form of the generals and the commanders and the admirals are actually more involved in theory. And they're not sitting back and not looking at these bodies as just numbers on a chit sheet. They are
Mhm.
actually humans, and they're actually caring about the loss of life and everything else. She is a more well-rounded, well-developed character, and that's actually true in the armed forces with what they're trying to do. We
Mhm.
still got a long ways to go
Yeah.
in the UK and in the US. But what they're trying to do about making it be less, throw all the bodies at the hill and hopefully we get it.
Yeah.
And she is smart, and she is, I'm going to use the word calculating, but not in the bad way. She is actually trying to find the balance between getting all the answers without destroying everything in the process to get the answers. And I loved her dad,
Yeah.
but but sometimes he was so military.
Well-
And growing up in a very military family, and that is our family business, and having things be certain ways, and this is you know, it just that's not how it works.
Right.
You don't get good answers that way. You
Mhm.
get good answers by other means.
Well, can I interrupt for a second?
Of course.
We're talking, you're saying the brigadier
Yes.
was military shoot.
Not all the times, but most of the
I'm
time.
going to say that because he started shoot first, but
Yes.
being around the doctor changed him.
It
And
did.
he did start
It did.
thinking more than shooting. By
That
the
is
time we
true.
got to battlefield, he was going to save the day using his pistol. But
Yeah.
if you're watching that story, he's doing a lot of thinking. It's not him going in saying, I'm going all guns blazing. He definitely has changed because of the doctor. Now,
Yes.
I'm wondering if Kate is the way she is, because if you think about when the time frame that Kate is growing up, wouldn't the mellowing of the brigadier and the
And she
changes from
talks
brigadier,
about growing up hearing stories
yeah,
from her dad about the doctor, and
Right.
and they were her bedtime stories, and they were her life lessons, and they were so much about
Mhm.
the doctor frames her entire existence.
I think she got
So-
that from her dad. I think that she would not be what she is if it wasn't for the development of her father. Just saying.
She's the kind of leader she is because of the doctor's influence on her dad.
Yes. That's where I'm going with
Interesting.
that.
I like it. I
Okay.
like it.
I was just actually doing a quick research, and she's been around since 2012.
Mhm.
And I
Wow.
think she's established herself as the professional, the great head of unit.
Yes.
And I think we've been, she's always been solid in every story.
Mhm.
She's always good under a crisis, even when everything is falling apart. And she's been consistent. I don't know if we've ever seen her development. In the sense,
Well, no,
I
I
think,
don't think we have, and that's
but
where-
I think she's very well established. She's kind of
yeah.
established at a
Mhm.
high point, and we just we just go with it, and it's been a great so far. I think we had a big pause. And I took a look, and they said that there was a pause between 2015 and then the end of Whitaker's era when she came back. So I think
Mhm.
that's also kind of interesting. But no, she's wonderful. Always look forward to whenever the unit story. Now that they somehow built an Avengers Tower in London.
I know.
It is.
That is definitely a, what are y'all doing? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's kind of weird because like 2 years ago they just defunded, and now we're
during
back to
Flux, yeah.
Avengers
Yeah.
Tower.
Yeah.
They got refunded
They
and big.
Yeah. I All right. Let's talk about the Sunday Clan.
Cherry Sunday, if there was a way, if there was a word
Mm-hmm.
that would be a Mary Sue, but a
Mhm.
Mary Sue whose sole purpose was to be a victim and to get kidnapped, that is what Cherry Sunday is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate the actress, nothing against the actress. Why? Other than to be someone for Mrs. Flood to victimize and menace.
It was great to have her on the show, but I feel she was wasted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm just there is a 2-year arc here, so I'm hoping she gets more to do other than ask for tea
Yeah.
in season 2. I don't see it happening. Carla, on the other hand, the mother, she's probably the best mom we've had since Jackie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Definitely. Juan, what do you think about the Sundays?
Well, I liked them. Cherry, I guess it's only doing stuff which is possibly leading up to the next season.
Mm-hmm.
Carla is obviously trying there to be supportive, but I wouldn't necessarily call this a Sunday story. They are trying to find, particularly the first part, they are trying to find it, trying to find the answers to Ruby's background, and Carla's being incredibly supportive. So, but I think you could have. Well, I think you couldn't have done it without. You could have done it without them, maybe. So, but what they did was interesting. But it could have been. It could have been more. It wasn't as much as it was in the Christmas special.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, their introduction was so much better than
It's like we needed mom so that we could know that she was okay about seeking out the bio mom, and we needed grandma just so that we could keep having those little snippets about Mrs. Flood, but at the same time it was so minor.
I know.
So minor. So it just made you wonder.
This may be a nitpick. So this may be a nitpick. But like, this is not towards Carla. It's more like towards Ruby in a sense. Because like, when she finds her mom, I just don't like how like she's referring to her like her as her like her real mom. It's like Carla has been there for like her entire life.
Yeah.
So like, it's just the fact that like the title just goes straight to her as the real mom. I get like there's no hate. It's all love. But it's just kind of weird to me. Maybe because I don't get it because I'm not a person of like Ruby, but like I get it,
Well,
but I don't get it, I guess.
Yeah. Zion, I think it's realistic for a number of people who are adopted searching for their parents. I feel that again we're sending a message, representing a group of the people who were adopted and their families. I think this does fill the need that they brought into it.
If you go watch the Envision commentary for this episode, this specific line, Russell goes into detail about how hard it was for him to write for what would it be? Would it be biological mom? Would it be my mom? And the fact that Ruby's flustered, what language would she use? So this conversation you're having, he had that he was like, I don't know what to put, so I just put something. You know, he put
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, the main thing to take away is that is all love. When she saw that she was crying, she was also supportive, said, I took care of her and she was safe. And I felt that. That's all love there.
Well, and to put it also in perspective, she's the only person in the room that said, oh, she's crying. She was the only one as that mother figure that picked up on it.
An actor that I have started to really like, Lenny Rush, played Morris Gibbons. Guys, thoughts?
I wish I was 14-year-old playing a unit scientific advisor on Doctor Who.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting. You guys, I don't know if you realize, I bet Jared knows this, that he was actually supposed to be the voice of, was it Tim in Space Babies? He was cast for Space Babies. Yeah, and then Russell had this part and was like, yeah, we're going to use you for this instead of that.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Did Lenny win that BAFTA? I think I watched him win a BAFTA.
That sounds right. We can check really quick.
We could check on that because I was watching the BAFTAs, I guess, 2 years ago, and I thought he won. We'll check up on it.
Yeah, there's a YouTube of him accepting one for performance in a comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wish that like his lines weren't just devolved to the probability joke. I wish that they just gave him just a bit more to work with, but that's just me.
Well, from what I understand, he is coming back. The unit cast is coming back for the foreseeable future, which makes me sad about Osgood because we haven't seen Osgood in a while.
What happened?
It doesn't mean she got fired. Maybe she's been off on the moon base somewhere.
You have to remember, unit is spread out.
That's true.
And Osgood has lots of other things that she's in charge of. So
you don't think Osgood's going to be upset that she missed all this with the doctor?
Of course she will be.
Oh yeah, they can write a story just on that.
Yes. Damn it, I missed him again. But you know, I love it. Although I do have to say one thing. It just in passing. I happened to notice something that crossed a feed, and someone said, "Oh, so unit's hiring children now." I'm like, oh my God, he's a genius. Shush. You want that poor genius stuck in some classroom somewhere? Oh my God. If you've ever been in a classroom where you were smarter than everyone else, let me tell you, they don't want to be there.
And he's using his intelligence to save the world.
Save the world.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan to me. Okay, there's one other character, and again, just from going in and how she was, not the end or anything, Mrs. Flood.
We still don't know.
We still don't know. No, we don't.
Nothing.
We don't.
Can't wait to find out.
We just know that she has a plan.
She is the ultimate cliffhanger every
Yeah.
freaking episode.
Yeah. I mean, we know from 73 yards that it wasn't, that wasn't her plan, and she has a plan. It wasn't down to her. This isn't down to me. And walk off.
Well, there's 5 million questions that go through my head with her because she's able to be affected by everything that's going on.
Right.
There's definitely something special about her. But you know me, I love a good mystery. I love a good story.
Yeah.
I just, I don't have to have every little last drop answered. You can have some of it back in my head, but eventually I want to know who she is and what the heck she's doing to mess with our lives.
Guys, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to talk about The Legend of Ruby Sunday right after this Mark Who 42's Universe or Universe.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Get ready for the ultimate geek experience right here in the Sunshine State. Florida Geek Scene presents a full calendar of events and conventions. From anime to horror, we've got it all. Meet your favorite stars, find rare collectibles, and immerse yourself in your passions. Experience the thrill of cosplay and witness amazing live performances. Stay up to date with the latest news and reviews all across Florida. Florida Geek Scene, where pop culture happens. Visit us online for more. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us at Florida Geek Scene. FloridaGeekScene.com.
Oh, hey, I got something.
Since 2009, we have been the premier cartoon podcast here at the Geekcast Radio Network. We are Tooncast. From taking you beyond the cartoons we grew up with to seasonal saucy toon talk, and now we get the origins of toonsters everywhere as we ask guests 30 questions about their cartoon watching experiences, plus so much more. Tooncast is back. Join me, TFG and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we give you all the toon talk you will ever need, only on the GCRN, and wherever you consume your podcasts. We are beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination. We are all tunes all the time here on Tooncast.
Yeah. You are listening to Mark Who 42's Universe.
Well, we're back with more of Mark Who 42's Universe. Guys, we talked about the cast and everything, and we were supposed to talk about A Legend of Ruby Sunday. Well, guess what? Let's do it. And to start her off, let's go with the 3-sentence synopsis by Wansa Miguel.
The Legend of Ruby Sunday. The Doctor and Unit try to find out who is Ruby's mother. The Doctor looks into the identity of a tech leader, and they all find something else entirely.
Okay, Juan, I do buy your synopsis. I think those are 3 sentences that definitely talk about this episode. Who wants to start first talking about the episode?
Hang on, let me take a crack at it. I mean, okay. It's interesting, but the thing is, it's all set up. It's all set up for a big conclusion, and we got we've got the primary. We got essentially 2 primary mysteries. I mean, we're going to find out, or we're going to look into, who is Ruby's mother, or why did all the stuff, all the odd stuff in the Christmas episode. And then the whole thing with Susan that pops up. And the thing is, I think it's something that a lot of good writers haven't been willing to address. I mean, I don't know. Terrence Dicks didn't really want to address Susan in the 5 Doctors, but then he had too much going on. I mean, I think he said once he figured out the nature of the game to put everybody together, that's what's drove the story, and that's why I don't think he could have done any big revelations of anything, like with the exception of who the villain was. Now there was an interesting short story that I think Eric Sayward wrote for the 20th anniversary Radio Time special, which either nobody remembers or nobody cares about. So that was a great driver that maybe RDT, and that was a big obviously that was a big fake out that RDT was going to resolve to determine what was Susan, how to, does the Doctor have children? Are we going to put or the more ambitious fans are going, are the looms going to be official?
I know someone who's in this room that will say that, right, Zion?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
all the
Zion's
plot,
a big believer of the loom.
but all of this was set up, and was set up, and then you get the big surprise at the end. And then then we lead up to the story, and then we lead up to the story, to the next part of the story. I mean, essentially, I think I think it was a good idea for promotional purposes, and I don't know how well it was attended, of showing the episodes in the theater and movie theaters back to back, because it's essentially one story with a break in the middle.
I want to ask something about the Susan thing, because like he was talking to I forgot who he was talking to, but he had that line where he said something along the lines of, "You can have a granddaughter without a daughter, or a granddaughter before."
Well, it's timey-wimey.
He's got a point.
I mean, maybe that's why we never on the show know anything about his children, just his grandchild, because it is out of order. Though, if I remember from classic series, no matter what order, where in the universe you are, Time Lords always see themselves sequentially in order. And that kind of gets messed up in RTD's era and in Stephen Moffat's with the Master, where does Missy fit and all that stuff. Because it's supposed to be relative. The Time Lords have a relative history, and that isn't in the new show.
There was a theory that I heard once that Susan actually isn't like the Doctor's granddaughter.
Oh, I mean, she's like,
I've heard that one before too.
She was a princess on a planet. She was going to be killed, and he rescues her, and then I remember reading that in what, the 80s or something. Jared, do you remember something like that back in the day? Some kind of fan fiction or something?
There's been so much.
Yeah.
And I'll just put it out there. Given the new direction that the show has gone, one thing that fits with me most, nowhere has it been said that she is his biological granddaughter.
Okay,
that is true.
Yeah.
For it to be an adoptive grandfather role, I think that fits more. And in my mind, I would, if they came out with that at one point, I'd be fine with it.
Well, the other thing that I'd mentioned is, and Mark, you might have been there at an Omnicon. I think people brought this up, and John Nathan Turner said that, well, in those days, in order to go to an English school, you had to have been registered by some relative.
Yeah, and that may be why it was grandfather. Yeah, I do think I remember that.
And what did the Doctor look like at that time? So,
like a grandfather. Yeah. You could, however, now we're, he's saying family, he's saying granddaughter. And yes, you don't have to be biological to be part of a family. We completely know that. Ruby, right? She has a family in that. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Juan. Maybe not maybe not really a biological granddaughter.
So why doesn't he just go back at this point?
I'm thinking at this point, because Carol Ann Ford is still alive, and the way that RTD has been writing all this, I would not be surprised if she's in next season. Not making that's a complete that's my idea, not even my opinion. Not even my opinion, not my guess. It's just, it would make sense if he put her in, because she's there, and she's, they showed a picture of her.
If I'm not wrong,
yeah.
And New Who, they floated the idea that she could even be dead because of the Time War or something, right? But I'm thinking,
Big
but
Finish.
like she was, but like she was left. No, but like just excluding Big Finish, right? She was left in what
2164 or something like that.
2164.
Yeah,
right?
somewhere around there.
The only way that the Time War would affect that is if it's like they want to go back to that event and such, and they never really mentioned that. So like all the way up until now, there's no actual reason why the Doctor wouldn't go back to even visit her.
Well, I'm thinking now that's been set in motion. He now thinks more about his family thanks to Ruby.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a question something that happens in this story, and in my mind, it isn't logical. Yes, there's a very important plot point and thing, and that comes out of it. But if you're a unit and you know you've got 3 hours to get ready for something that that they think will happen with Susan implementing her software and the speech, why, when all that is going on and they're getting ready, hey, let's find out what's Ruby's mother. Let's just go to the time window. That logically, does that fit? That wasn't, if you think about it, very important.
Is it because the
in the
doctor
scheme of
said
things.
it was important, so it had to be important?
I don't think it would. I just don't think. I think the doctor, if he's, would think, let's do the important thing first. But I guess, yes, in his mind, this is very important too, because Ruby is his friend. But I do think that doesn't make sense. If this was the real world and any of this really happened, I would not think this would logically be the step that they would take between while they're trying to get ready for it and happening. Let's take a little excursion. Again, it had something,
Except
the plot
that
was important.
The question is that what does Ruby have to do with Susan? Where does it all connect?
But we only have that from that comment Morris makes about we have a missing person and you have a, and
Okay.
yeah, Morris is a friggin' genius. Yes, it still doesn't, in my mind, make sense. I don't think he should have written it any other way. I just, while I was watching it, I said out loud, why? They have no time to do this. Why are they doing this?
Also, like, I have a question about that, right? So, like, we go see Susan, right? Fine. I could have sworn that the Doctor or like Time Lords can tell from other Time Lords.
Unless it's a chameleon arc, Targe. Yeah. They should be able to tell.
So,
and that's why he needed to shake her hand, right?
No, see, like, that's what I'm questioning, because, like, even though they regenerate, they can tell a Time Lord from another human. Like, bear with me for a second, right? The Doctor can smell at least his range of smell is so right that he can tell what time he's in, right?
But if you're in a chameleon arc, you could not. You are,
because
you're human. Because she'd be human. That's why Susan was human. So the only logical thing in his mind, if it was Susan, would be that.
Tennant
you would not recognize it.
Tennant couldn't sniff out Derek Jacobi as the master, and he was standing
because
in the
he
room
was right. Because he wasn't technically the master. He was a human at that point, been changed. But that actually leads to something. He was talking to Doctor was talking to Ruby about the regeneration and the faces, and he said, yeah, we change our face when we die, but also to hide.
Yes.
But when you're in a chameleon arc, you don't necessarily change your face. David Tennant's 10th Doctor did not change his face.
That's true.
Also,
so this is like a new piece of time lore. And do you guys think it's a good part of the new time lore?
Well, actually, I want to say something real quick. The idea of Time Lords being to identify each other, I think, held up up until the story before the last of the Time Lords, when they're on Earth, because the Doctor could identify the Master, but I think that fell by the wayside when Missy came along, because he couldn't identify Missy.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes.
That is true.
And I think it's either it was inconvenient for what Moffat wanted to do, because also he also couldn't recognize they couldn't recognize the Master in Spyfall either. So that was also a surprise. And also that's the maximum surprise when it is a big spoiler level surprise when the Missy is revealed and when the Master is revealed in Spyfall. So I think they just wanted to keep that, and it just would have gotten in the way of what Chibnall and Moffat were doing.
Also, one more thing, right? Since he has to confirm if this is Susan or not, he can't tell if that's like H Susan or that she switched her face, or like, does that confirm that Susan's a Time Lord or what? Because like I'd assume he'd be able to tell aged Susan. That's what I'd assume, that he'd be able to tell.
Well,
a
that's
degree
true because he's
off
suggesting
face.
that she could have changed her face,
Mhm.
and he'd have to look at her and touch her and look in her eyes. So that does suggest that then she would have to be a Time Lord or shapeshifter of some sort, and he
Yeah.
knows she is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But we're not going to get an answer to every single question.
No.
And there's going to be 5 million questions. And let's just be honest, you know, when you're writing a teleplay, you're trying to make everything fit.
Mhm.
And they got a lot of stuff into these
Yeah,
teleplays.
yeah.
They got a lot of stuff into them. So I definitely hear you guys, and I can totally get it. But there's also a little bit of I feel, and to me, the Doctor is always thinking, and maybe doesn't know why he thinks he needs to do some things, but sometimes he feels like he's got to do things in certain orders. And we've kind of seen that over the years where I've got to go do this. He doesn't tell us, the audience, he doesn't tell the people around him why he's doing things. He just goes off and does them.
Yeah.
So the fact that he goes to the window and we got to go do this right now, we never know why he says we got to go do that right now. To be honest, I've seen him do crap like that for the last 60 years.
Well, hold on.
That I
think
kind of
that's
go, well, of course he's got to go do that right now, and we've got a world crisis going on.
You know, it happens. It happens on every TV show. If they've got,
well, that too.
This is, yeah. I mean, it's not just on this show. You know, that they
but
always have
the
two things they have
Doctor
to do. They
is
do
always
one thing.
2 steps ahead of us.
That's true.
And I think that sometimes his brain is 3 steps ahead of himself. and because there's been times that the Doctor has done things, and I almost feel like when he's in the memory TARDIS, and it gives him things like the whistle, and the TARDIS knows what he needs. He knows what he needs. His memory knows what he needs, even before he knows what he needs. And so I think that he has this tendency. So that's how, in my world, how I can reconcile it all.
Okay.
And maybe I'm trying too hard, but that's how I reconcile it all.
Yeah, I will go with that. I'm fine with that. You know, there's another mystery in this story that I think is probably the most important mystery, and it's what I'm really waiting to find out.
Yes.
Who did Harry Sullivan marry?
When did they mention he was? I know you were trying to do a joke.
Because Corporal Alice Sullivan got to be the daughter, right? When did Harry get married?
Oh.
Is that going to be covered in Big Finish, Jared?
Well, the actor who plays Harry Sullivan for Big Finish highlighted that and shared it on Twitter. It's like, what is this? I have a kid. So yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I didn't even see that.
Wow.
I got married. I have a kid. What?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you can learn if you follow Big Finish and you know what to look for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that'll explain or just have interesting timing, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I like that.
I want to go back to Susan just for a second as an example of this.
Okay.
For the listeners that don't know, Big Finish is a company that produces Doctor Who audio dramas. They've done it for more than 25 years. They're
fabulous.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. They have a great relationship with the BBC. Sometimes they get approval. Yeah, sure, do this. Other times the BBC would say stuff like, don't do that yet.
Yeah.
Don't do that. There was a release from 2020, height of COVID, called Susan's War. Okay.
Yes.
It was announced as being the first part of a trilogy. Do you remember that, Mark?
Yeah, and isn't part 2 out or just about to come out this month?
It was recorded
then, right? But they
no. It was recorded in March of this year.
Oh,
because
I thought they recorded the whole thing.
Specifically, the Susan's War arc, they were told, hold off on this for now. Come back to it later. So I find it interesting that if you look and see, box set 2 of Susan's War, coming out in August. When was it recorded? When was it recorded? March of this year.
Interesting.
Written years ago. Oh, but hold off on this character for right now till we give you a green light. And they only recorded it towards the end of filming for season 2.
Which makes you think.
Wow.
Yeah.
You feel like there's going to be a connection.
Yeah.
The same thing for the Spy Master and the Fugitive Doctor sets. Recorded hold off on releasing them for
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering
yeah.
when those were going to come out.
Yeah.
Still
Fascinating.
very interesting.
God, no.
So yesterday we had my Doctor Who club that I run. I was showing the 2 episodes. And right before I showed the episode, I had this idea. And I showed the musical number, There's Always a Twist at the End. And
Yes.
let people know the twist at the end in this is very important. And that was the only spoiler I gave, but no one actually caught that until
Oh my God.
because Harry turned into Harriet and was in this episode. Harbinger. Wow.
Yeah.
Did anyone expect that to come out of it? That
Not really.
Harriet was going to be someone important when she said, "This is the thing I was born to do." When she was getting the information on something that they were looking at, she said that, and at that point, well,
Totally went
what she
over
was
my
born to
head.
do.
Totally
was born
missed
to
it.
do.
Yep. That totally, I thought she was probably related to somebody from an earlier, show, but I wasn't thinking Harbinger. I was thinking, oh, I wonder who she's related to from one of the old Who's. That's immediately where I went to. Was like, oh, who are we going to find she's related to? And then when he starts saying last name, I'm thinking, oh, hold it. And then the second her name came up, I'm like,
Yeah. Wonder how
like
many
it
people
makes
did
sense.
that. Yeah.
It was, to me, that was a beautiful reveal because it tied it in. It was a nice. I do like within this 2-part finale, we had a lot of arcs. Some of them were weak, like Rose Noble, where they were very thin little circular moments. Several of them were nice little circles where we got, those circles were completed, and so we could see where we've in this season we've got those circles completed, and I thought they were done beautifully. So it was a very fascinating and interesting way to circle it all up. And yes, we still have 5,000 mysteries and all sorts of things that we still have questions about, but nice circling around on some of them. And Harriet was a nice one because I was like, duh. That was a dumb moment for myself.
And this show is what I was born to do.
Oh.
All right. Yeah. Speaking, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, rumors, because there were a lot of rumors about this episode. Sean Pertwee was going to play the third Doctor, which would have been cool, but
cool.
Everyone and ideas people had, and everyone was putting, oh, S Triad, TARDIS, it must be that. But instead of like it just not being, it was actually a very interesting thing because everyone's ready for something, and oh, we're right, it's there, and then completely wrong. Was anybody really in on this TARDIS, and why did you believe this? Was it just because you were hearing about it, or did you have any ideas on your own from the season that we were watching?
Had no clue. I just tried to just go with the flow. I tried to not look at any rumors.
Jared?
I plead the fifth.
You plead the fifth. Okay, but I mean the fact that Susan Triad Industries, I'm sorry, Susan Triad Technologies, and everyone's going with, oh, Susan Triad, S Triad. It was actually Sutekh. Wow, that was a great reveal, wasn't it, guys?
That was, and I really tried hard to avoid a lot of the chatter while I was watching the season. Partially because there was the combination of the trolls and so many different theories. It got to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't want to read them all. I don't want to look at them all. And I mean, it was like everyone was throwing the whole kitchen sink at it. And I'm like, hey, I love love a good theory, and I love a good, let's guess what's going to happen next. But it was getting to be too much.
Yeah.
And so I want to just enjoy these shows.
Okay.
And I want to have fun. So I stopped reading as much as possible and just watched things on individual episodes after I watched them because I was curious what other people thought, and I wanted to see kind of how other people felt about things.
Right.
Like, did they agree with me? What were their takes on it? And I found that fascinating. But I tried really hard to avoid the rumor mills. And of course, things would slip through. And I was just like, whoa, people breathe.
Right.
But I love the reveal because, I mean, Tom Baker was my favorite doctor and is my favorite doctor. And even though, I don't know. It was just one of those things that I was like, so yes. I loved it. Okay, I did. I loved it. And I love the way that it was a fake out versus the TARDIS. Then it's not. Then it's this. Then it's this. I'm like,
yeah.
So I loved it. I love the way he did that to me. Thank you for doing that to me. Thank you for messing with my head and making it an enjoyable ride.
Who else was loved the way it was revealed? Who else liked the big reveal?
It worked for me. It worked for me. I try to avoid it. I mean, there are a few podcasts I'll listen to, and but at the same time, I think those podcasts don't like to play the guessing game or just
like I did the last 2 episodes. I love the guessing game, but that's besides the point. Go ahead.
We told you not to.
Hey, okay.
So yeah, it's not. So I just want to be surprised. And the thing is, with the exception, I think the only time that fandom might have gotten it right was the Toy Maker coming back. And I think that was just more luck than anything else. So take that as you will.
Okay. Scion.
There you go. I like that.
Scion.
Same. I overall really enjoyed it. Considering that, it's kind of weird. This series was said to be a reboot to bring in new fans. Yet there's not a lot of people out there that's watched all 4 episodes of Pyramids of Mars. At least from what I've experienced.
I watched them this morning.
We're doing the con scene for like a while now, and we barely get talking to about Sutekh. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting how we bring this one character from 1974,
75,
now to the reboot season. But yeah, overall, it's my favorite villain. I was here like, oh my goodness, he's back. It's time to rejoice. It's time to kill the universe.
I think I'm going to speak for Jared and myself on this one about the big reveal. Is that all right, Jared? Oh, you want to say something?
I was going to tell a little story and comment.
Ooh.
Go tell your story and then I'll tell my story. Go for it.
Before I get onto the episode, if you notice from the reveal onwards, all the scenes are indoors. They were filmed inside in a protective environment. Yeah. Even the point where he was walking on the planet in the cloak, he wasn't outside. The only things that happened outside was Carla and the street scenes that we all saw. But there was nothing involving physical prosthetics or Sutekh or any type of reveal that would have been released to the public. That you can see in the way the episode was shot. In regards to the fandom and in how informed they are, there are lots of things that happen throughout the years, and I want to share a story that happened to me in 2008. Okay. In early 2008, I was living in Orlando, doing my best life. My first Doctor Who convention was 1.5 years away. Like, everything was fun. I got a call from a friend of mine who said, Jared, I have something you want to see. And I was like, okay. Went over to their house, and they showed me a script for a as yet unannounced Doctor Who special called The Next Doctor.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, people say scripts a lot of times. However, knowing how the BBC works, knowing how Doctor Who production works, this had a watermark on it. It had watermarks on all the pages. It had
Ooh.
it had a name watermarked on it. It was a color version release, because when they do drafts, they'll say they won't say this is draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. They'll say
They do the
this
colors.
they do the color version, yeah. So I contacted someone with BBC and said, hey, just so you're aware, I have a script in my hands that calls itself The Next Doctor. There is a character called Rosita. There is a character called Jackson Blake. And on page 7, this character says this. Within 24 hours, I had BBC Legal contacting me, knocking me down. That was at a point. That was at a point before The Next Doctor had gone into filming. It had not gone into production. Things were still being done. And that was a legitimate script that leaked. And had that leak not been quickly discovered where it came, we tracked back where it came from, all that, they would have needed to scrap the story entirely and go with something different. No more Cybermen, no more.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a book. One of my prized possessions is a copy of the shooting script signed by Julia Gardner, where she says, "Dear Jared, thank you for saving Christmas." And it was, so when we talk about fans, obviously from that point on for 10 years, I was under an NDA where I couldn't talk about the show and express any opinions on it, except other than what was factually released publicly.
Yeah.
Try running a Doctor Who convention for 7 years and not being
that can definitely be tricky. I can see that.
But yeah, so I wanted to start this about fandom, my personal involvement with fandom being educated and knowing things that they shouldn't. And Mark, I think you want to.
Yeah, he set me up for my story. I'm not gonna go into too many details. Nothing was signed, but I just don't want certain parties. Back in October of last year, I saw something. Probably shouldn't have seen it, but the big reveal of Sutekh, October 30th, I knew completely 100%. I then, because I don't want to. I don't want to just spread it around. I mean, I could have just announced it on our show, and but I contacted Jared, and I told you about it. And Jared, what did you do?
Well, at that point, Mark, you were the third person.
I was the third person. Okay,
but you were the first two people contacted me and said, "Who's Sutekh? I don't know who they are. Who's Sutekh?"
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And these were new series people.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And one of them actually said, "Are they bringing this Big Finish villain from a Benny audio? Is that who Sutekh is?" And I was like, okay. But no, I reached out to people involved with the production and said, "Hey, I am getting a lot of this." And they said, yes. And they said, yes, it's real. And
but
this, not speaking for Mark,
No.
because I know there are a lot of avenues that this can go down. At least one of the people that contacted me was involved in a preliminary screening audience reaction type.
Okay.
You know those things when you're in the mall and they say, "Hey, can you come in and watch this thing?"
Yeah.
It came from one of those.
Yeah.
And
I know
so
about those. Yeah.
all of the Sutekh stuff that probably didn't help rumors circulating as wildly as they did, because these people had seen it. They knew what they were.
Yep.
So like Jared, I'm actually waiting for my thanks for saving season 14 card. Because I know
always
when you
hard
contact
when...
no, hold on. When Jared was talking about this, the powers that be were saying, do we have to do a press release on this? Is this going to come out? Is this a leak? And I'm glad that never came to be, because to a lot of people that would have ruined the season. Now, speaking on behalf of Jared and myself, we actually we don't have a problem hearing some spoilers, do we, Jared? We're able to enjoy.
I am I am 100% immune to spoilers, and a lot of that comes from growing up as a Who fan in the 80s, 90s, even Trek, where sometimes you read the synopsis in Star Trek magazine or Doctor Who magazine a year before you saw the show.
Doctor Who magazine for Americans, we would read the reviews, and then 3 years later we'd get the episodes. And
oh wow.
Yeah, I mean,
get it so late in PBS that it already been circulating around for so long, you know.
From Tom Baker on, we basically knew at least a year or two before we ever saw the episodes.
Yeah.
Unless you went to a convention. Then you get to see it earlier. But
there were cases of Target books, specifically the 5 Doctors, hitting shelves before the episode aired.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the TV movie, the video of the TV movie in England got out, was released before the actual showing. Yeah. So, I mean, spoilers, you know, I know that a lot of people hate spoilers, but I mean, I could handle most of them. And the cool thing about this, so I knew Sutekh was coming back, and I'm not telling anybody, but the cool thing was, it didn't detract from the story, because the whole season. So Juan, you know, I was trying to make guesses and what was going to happen in the season.
Yeah.
The reason I was doing that, I'm trying to make it more fun for me, because I knew the end result, and by trying to figure it out, that's what actually made this this reveal work for me. Because I was the whole season, I'm like, how are they going to fit this in? How is it going to work? So my mind has been going, and I've been enjoying it since October.
See, I don't have a problem with spoilers ever since my brother ruined Return of the Jedi.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It goes way back.
Yeah.
Little twit.
Well, I know people were going, "Oh, Darth Vader's Luke's father."
Well, when he died,
before Empire.
No, when he died, and I'm like, seriously, because he got to stay home sick, and then I got to see it after I got home from school, and I'm just like, not fair.
Yeah.
But you know, I digress. But you know, the spoilers I can deal with. What I don't enjoy doing. But this is just me. You enjoy doing it, go for it, have fun with it. I don't like playing the what if game too much, because there's 5 million avenues. You know, you could play that what if game until you're blue in the face. You know, you just keep going and going and going. And I don't enjoy that. Because, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be, you know, and after a while, I don't want to play that game.
Okay.
I don't mind, you know, discussing what does this mean, but I also, not everything has a secret meaning. Not everything is an Easter egg. And the reason I say that, and it's not even because of our discussions, it's because of the discussions I've seen online. And I feel like sometimes everyone's trying to find an Easter egg, and some of those are really big stretches. And you just kind of go, oh, okay, people, breathe, take a sip.
Okay.
And it's okay. And it's just, not everything has to be the biggest reveal since we found out Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't have to be. So I get, I can enjoy it, but there comes a time where I'm just like, okay, calm down.
Okay.
And I'm okay with the spoilers. I do like to be surprised, but I also, I mean, let's be honest. I don't know if they're the ability to not have a spoiler in this day and age. God bless you guys, because I have to be online all the time because of my job. And it's really hard when you have to be in the news and you can't say, please don't give me anything about the upcoming movie. But I have to know what's going on in the world. And I need to know, you know, if there was a crime that happened, but it's also going to tell me, oh my God, this movie came out. Here's the ending. You know, the news, notifications don't have a button you can press
No.
to not tell me the differences. So I gave up on spoilers decades ago.
Right. All right. Bringing it back in a little. Does anyone have anything further they want to talk about the legend of Ruby Sunday? Anything we missed? If not, I think we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to talk about, well, I guess I'll say it, Tales of the TARDIS, Pyramid of Mars, and then Empire of Death. We'll be right back here on Marku 42's Universe.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Marku 42 after this.
Toycast is back. We are talking toys once more here on the Geekcast Radio Network's Toy and Action Figure podcast. From breaking into the display case to our toy topic talk and the brand new Origins in Toy collections, where we get guests to tell us their toy story of how they got into toy collecting. Toycast is the only toy podcast you will ever need. Find us on geekcastradio.com and any podcatching client you choose to use. Now go forth, transform and transcend your toy collecting today while listening to Toycast.
You are listening to Marku 42's Universe.
Welcome back to more of Marku 42's Universe. Guys, I haven't even been announcing everyone's names at each intro. We've got Vicky Jakubowski, we've got Juan San Miguel, we've got Zion Kiros, and our special guest, Jared Cooper. Welcome back, guys. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is something that I think only Jared and I have seen, though kind of everyone here has seen it, but the specific thing we're going to talk about is only Jared and myself and people who lived in Great Britain. Yes, I'm talking about the episode that was dropped Thursday at 8 p.m. British summertime, Tales of the TARDIS, Pyramid of Mars. Oh boy, Jared. So we were the lucky ones who got to see this over here. I mean, there were probably a lot of people, but of this show, we're the only ones who saw it.
Correct.
I saw it.
Oh, you saw it too,
Oh,
Jared?
yeah.
Okay. Oh,
And
you did.
I
Okay.
saw it through extraordinary means.
Well, that's how we all saw it. That's right, Zion. You were there. Duh. Okay, so then more of us. We have more people to talk about this. So, okay, Tales of the TARDIS. It came the 6-episode spin-off. I don't really call it a spin-off, but it was a spin-off of the 60th anniversary, where they showed stories from Classic Who wrapped around, bookended by actors of the doctors or companions that were in those episodes later, as they were now, but still in character. And, I thought it was great. They showed the entire omnibus. It was basically the whole episode without the breaks and stuff, with a story around it. And that worked for me. I enjoyed that, but I enjoyed it as what it was represented as, just showing classic episodes. Who would have thought that it went where it did on Thursday? Jared?
Well, it's very interesting from a behind-the-scenes point of view. Again, I'm going to go back and reference that same Envision commentary from Russell on Empire of Death.
Yeah.
The memory TARDIS, thus the crux around Tales of the TARDIS, was conceived, designed, and filmed only for Empire of Death. It wasn't until after they were done with Empire of Death, they were like, hey, we've got this thing.
Yeah.
It's cool. Let's do more stuff with it.
Yeah. Russell came in on this, and he is tied. The whole thing is planned. And yes, he came up with that later, but that idea later that he did earlier worked to help the later. It's all time. It wrapped in a ball. I don't know. But it's funny. So yes, the memory TARDIS, the remember TARDIS, whatever we're going to call it, that features in, and we'll talk about it, Empire of Death, featured in this Pyramid of Mars. I mean, this Tales of the TARDIS, and in fact, all of the Tales of the TARDIS, where let's go with Earthshock. So Tegan and the Doctor are in that, the Fifth Doctor, and somehow they got there. They don't know how they got there at all. And in fact, Tegan says she was asleep and she woke up here. And it's interesting because when this one was announced for Empire of Death, I'm like, how are they gonna put this into the middle of the story? How are they going to fit it? But then when I thought about it, well, yeah, it could have happened later. It could happen while they were just not as part of the timeline, but somehow a memory came on board. So in a way, it did work. In a way, it did work, and I'm glad they did it. But I'm not glad about the way they did it.
For that pair particularly, coming after Power of the Doctor, it worked.
It did.
Because you have that character moment between the two of them in Power of the Doctor where Adric's death is still a wound and is still something that affects them. So for the fact that they brought this story in particular to deal with that trauma after their most recent appearance, still referred to it, however many years later, it worked for that. And
you're right, because what about Curse of Fenric, the 6th Tales of the TARDIS with the 7th Doctor and Ace? That also kind of picked up from Power of the Doctor. It works. But what doesn't work for me on this Pyramid of Mars one was that it was, in my opinion, chopped to pieces. There was there's the whole story, the whole episode was an hour and 10 minutes, and Pyramid of Mars is an hour and 40 minutes. And then you still had to have the scenes with Ncuti and Millie. So it was chopped. It was chopped. And Zion, I know, hated the way the Daleks was chopped. Remember when we saw the Daleks?
Actually, I found this chop actually digestible.
Did you?
I actually liked it a lot, particularly the effects. The effects of the time window actually were phenomenal.
But they missed a very
important Mars. It would be that version.
But they did They did update some. They took something out of Pyramid of Mars that really should have been there. The riddle, the question when they're on Mars. That is such a good scene. I mean, yes, it's been a story that's told before, but that scene where, if he's telling the truth and he isn't, then that was the coolest thing in that story, at least when I was growing up. And it wasn't there. It wasn't there.
But this thing was here to do a job, to fill in the new gen for the next episode. And I won't lie, it did its job.
It did do its job.
I just hope that people paid attention enough to look at this next episode the right way, or at least in a certain way.
But there's the crux. It did its job to educate people who didn't know who Sutekh was. But Jared, what about the American and everyone around the world who didn't live in Great Britain? They didn't get this primer, at least not in this way.
No, because it's funded 100% by license fees, so it belongs to the British public.
Right, and if you hold on, right, and so is Doctor Who Unleashed. But I know, and we'll talk about this if we have time, about, you talk about naysayers, Vicky, the fact that a lot of British people are going, oh, it's being taken from us, the show. But no, because you get all this cool stuff in addition.
They get all the stuff that we don't get.
We're not taking it from you. No.
I have the UK release Blu-rays of the 60th specials and the Church on Ruby Road. And those contain all the Envision commentaries, the Unleashed, everything. So I am intrigued to see what would a North American Blu-ray release for the season look like. What would it be included with? And is it this? When will we get it? Because of Disney involved,
right?
And will the content be the same when we do?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that is always an interesting thought.
And the other thing that made me kind of giggle is this Tales of the TARDIS, specifically the Pyramid of Mars, fits perfectly. You can tell when in the episode it is.
Well, they showed the scenes. There's a scene in there. Yeah.
You can tell when this is supposed to take place. But now every time I think back to the cutaway, this Tales of the TARDIS, Pyramids of Mars, all I'll think about is Bonnie Langford is taking a nap off over in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Just off camera.
I don't know if that was a nap. I think that was something else was going on, but we'll get in there. So Tales of the TARDIS, we didn't get it here, but we saw it. It did do its job. Definitely. It would have been nice for the rest of the world to get that primer, but the classic series is available on some streaming service everywhere. So, I mean, they didn't know they had to do that homework.
This format works.
Yeah.
for any time in the show where you need to remind the audience of something. Even if it's something that took place in the Sarah Jane Adventures or the new series or Torchwood, you have this framing mechanism there.
Well, you had
It
Clyde.
is kind of nice.
You had Clyde from SJA in the Three Doctors with Joe. I thought that was beautiful. I mean, legitimately, who else would they have put with Joe there? If you need two people from that that are respectful from that era.
John Levine, he's the only other
I was thinking,
right now.
see, that was a funny thing. I was thinking John Levine, but at the same time, I think with Clyde it worked better than it could have. And I don't mean any disrespect, John. I just think it worked. All right. We have to move on, but definitely it would have been nice if the world got it. But yes, Great Britain, you still hold on to Doctor Who.
Yes, they do.
Yes. Juan, let me have the 3 sentences for Empire of Death.
Empires of Death. The Doctor, Ruby, and Mel try to evade Sutekh. The Doctor finds a spoon. The Doctor and the TARDIS take a trip with Sutekh.
No, it's funny. The spoon thing, I was waiting for him to play him. I would play it. I really was.
I do love the fact that he essentially saves the universe with a spoon, because when you think about it, the fact that the world can be saved with something as simple as a spoon, and I realize it's just a piece, the world, the universe, whatever. It always has to be that final key piece has to be something that is innocuous. You have to have
MacGyver. You have to do a MacGyver.
It has to be a MacGyver. It has to be something that these supervillains never think is going to be something. And of course, that's the key to everything.
Yeah.
Sutekh cannot see what is actually in his destruction, because he cannot see the simplest things.
Yeah.
He cannot see Ruby. And so because he can't, he makes it bigger. He can't see these simple things.
Yeah. Well,
And
I mean,
so the memory TARDIS, the little things they do flat out has to be the things that save everything, because the big baddie can't see it.
Yeah. I have a question. And this is something I actually this morning saw something online, and it brought the part of it did. So Sutekh's scheme, I thought it was a great one. He didn't die. He latched onto the TARDIS, and every place he landed, he left a seed, to destroy it when he was ready for it. And because the Doctor, even he said he's been everywhere at this point, everywhere and every when, the whole universe has been seeded. But this question was brought up on Facebook this morning, and I'm not really sure how to work it into my mind. In the giggle, Ncuti duplicated the TARDIS. Is a copy of Sutekh on the other one as well?
That is a thought.
I think Adrian Sherlock actually was the one I read posting about a paradox that was made, and this is where it went.
I asked this last night when I was driving home, because like Ncuti, the original TARDIS had no jukebox. Ncuti hits the TARDIS. New TARDIS has a jukebox. So Ncuti has the duplicate. So why is Sutekh on the duplicate? I don't know. It makes no sense.
I'll take that question.
Please, Jared, please do. Please do.
And take it even further back, shall we say.
Okay.
Think about the end of the Five Doctors. When the TARDIS splits off and all the ghost TARDISes did a little bit. And not to mention one of our favorite Stephen Moffat episodes, The Doctor's Wife. Wouldn't it have been convenient for her at that point to say, oh, by the way, there's this
I got something on my back.
Yeah. Oh, what we're doing is we're doing it down in Noble. There's something on my back.
Yeah. So that gets to something I was going to bring up, but that is there's lots of questions there.
Yeah, like it's kind of odd that he's just always been there. I kind of don't like that, because like I love Heroes of Mars, but I haven't watched it in a while. So that omnibus like refreshed everything, right? So I'm here remembering that, okay, this guy is pretty much Death Galactus, right? Just off base, just off what we get from parts 1 through 4. He could wipe out the entire universe off rip. So if he didn't die being flung through and age through the time corridor, why wouldn't he just go on his merry way and continue? Because the Doctor couldn't stop him prior to that. He had to use the time corridor to stop him. So, like, as soon as the Doctor lands somewhere else, Sutekh can just break himself free and just lay waste to the universe. Like, it's kind of weird. I don't know. 'Cause, like, I don't want to say that RTD hasn't watched Here's a Mars or no Sutekh, because that's just ridiculous. But you have to question things, right? We have a whole part in Pyramids where the Doctor gets taken over, right? Just on pure mental ability. Sutekh's pure raw mental ability is able to hold an explosion from here and Mars. That's over like 1,000,000 miles, right? Off pure mental ability. So, like, when I look at the scene where, like, he's being dragged on a leash through the time vortex, I'm questioning, why can't he just control him right there?
Wait a minute.
Why can't he just do it then?
Jared, please help me on something. Sutekh was not buried on Mars. The jail, the thing that was holding him it was on Mars.
Correct.
Sutekh was in Egypt.
Yes.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because he was trapped under the pyramid.
Right.
He was sending the missile to Mars
to break
Wait, no, are you saying he wasn't on Mars because he had to go through the time corridor? And he had 20 seconds.
Because he was that many years. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think part of the reason is he just lit seeds. I mean, Sutekh was wanted revenge. He wanted revenge. He was savoring it. He thought, the longer I draw this out, I get all this.
Like, he could do that just by himself. Like, that's my question.
Right, but but the Doctor foiled him. He's got to get back at the Doctor. It's total revenge. This is a revenge episode.
I would assume this is just me because Sutekh is a god. He is above that because he's just out to just wipe out all of creation.
Isn't he? He's from the planet of Sirius.
He was an Osiris.
Siren, right?
But they were doing the whole ancient astronauts thing that was very popular in the 70s. To the point they had children's books on it.
Right. But you're right, because all right, I'm going to go through this now. So, we've been this season, we've had the Pantheon. We've been talking about the Pantheon of Discord.
Right.
Toymaker, we knew before. Maestro, we now know. The Mara. If you've watched Kinda or Snake Dance from the Peter Davison era, you know who I'm talking about. The Trickster, the god of tricks, which is from Sarah Jane. But there's also, and they've mentioned the threefold deity of malice, mischief, and misery. Then there's Incenser, the god of disaster, and her children, doubt and dread. Reprobate, the avatar of spite, and have not been seen. The same goes with the skin, shame, and secrets, the god of those. But it is now, and I don't know if this is canon because I don't know if this was actually said. I guess it was in the episode. Sutekh is the father, mother, and other of the Pantheon. So does that make Sutekh the top god? Is Sutekh really, really, really the big baddie on this?
I'd assume so. But like, my question about that list is this, right?
Okay.
Where does the white and black guardian lie in that? Because as far as we've seen, they're like the most godlike beings.
But I think the black and white guardian and the other guardians are from this universe, while the Pantheon of Discord are from the universe before. So the Great Intelligence should be in that list too.
The gods of Ragnarok.
Gods of Ragnarok. Yes. Still, yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Keep mentioning gods. Keep going.
Yeah. See, like, I don't know. My whole thing about it is what RTD gave us, right? They say that Sutekh was woven into the fabric of the TARDIS, right?
Right. Yeah.
So then, my question is that how would you remove him then?
I have an even more basic question after this episode.
Okay.
When did Sutekh take the TARDIS back to Ruby Road?
Ah.
He took it back, which meant he was there the first time, and after the TARDIS was there the first time, Sutekh took it back. When did that happen?
That's a mystery of a plot hole. We'll have to discuss at a later point, because that's a very good point.
But still,
There
like
are-
Sutekh.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like Sutekh starts to wipe the universe, right?
Mhm.
And like we get that scene where like Kate dies.
Yeah.
And I won't lie, I actually felt something until I realized that wait, this is just Endgame, ain't it?
Yes, Thanos. Yeah. Yeah. Except instead of half, it's the whole. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
like I just like personally me, that would have been a nice death if they wanted to capitalize on it just for stakes. But like as soon as you see everything get wiped away, especially like after we saw Flux and like they like doubled down on
I was going
on
to say
Flux.
that it's the same thing at Flux. It's kind of like a repeat, kind of, except
Yeah.
this one you get out of.
Yeah, you almost knew as soon as you saw it, this is not gonna stick.
Okay.
None of this is gonna stick.
Now I want to give you this. I was watching that and I'm like, okay, how it, because they're not all, they have to come back. And I was going, okay, well, I'm pretty sure we're not going to do one of those pretty red reset buttons this time. We're not going to hit his reset button like in center of the TARDIS, but I think the solution worked, because if you think about it, the death of death is life, kind of like a dark side's anti-life equation. I think they solved it very well without
I
actually
didn't have a
hitting
problem
button.
with
That's
the
just
way
arbitrary. It's just put there. I don't know how, because like the way that I saw it, it's like okay, so we have neutral, death is -1, life is +1, so we just went 0 + 1 is just -1 plus a -1 is a +1, and I'm like, I mean,
Minus
okay,
one,
I guess.
hold on, -1, -1, -1 is -1 plus minus. Oh,
No,
wow.
a -1.
I think someone
times
dropped the ball on
negative.
that.
I just have a problem with this arbitrary meaning being the answer to what I personally think is the S tier to all of Doctor Who villains. Like we was 20 seconds away again in Prince of Mars, 20 seconds away from all of creation being turned into dust.
Right.
And now we originally get rid of him by throwing him into the time vortex. And now you want to tell me the way that we get rid of him is to throw him into the time vortex? It's kind of weird to me.
But it was a little different this time. They weren't going to trap him in the time vortex. They were going to destroy him.
Well,
he was choosing to do something he does as rare as he possibly can. And he even has the speech about you are turning me into you.
So we know in The Giggle that Ncuti gives the 14th Doctor, the 15th Doctor gives 14th Doctor the gift of pulling away his guilt, pulling away all that tragedy, and starting afresh. And I think that's why the 15th Doctor has been so lighthearted and everything's been going good. I propose that in this episode, we've gone full circle, because his guilt, anguish, and responsibility for the universe is now 100% back. The quote is, "We fought a monster, and now I must become a monster. Sutekh the Destroyer, the Lord God of death itself, you win, because I pride myself. I pride myself that I am better than you. Because if you are death, then I must represent life. Surely that's what I am, life. And that's how you win, Sutekh, because you turn me into this. I am the one that brings death." And when he's saying this, I'm hearing 10 giving that one chance speech. You have one chance, or I destroy you, or I.
You're hearing 10. I heard Peter Capaldi.
Okay, well,
but
10 is right. Well, I hear Capaldi too, but 10 was earlier. I totally think that anything that happened in The Giggle that made Ncuti, the 15th Doctor, lighthearted. I mean, this will be good. This will be fun, because all Doctors were fun. But I think it's back to where he was before he took that prize away. What say you?
I will disagree with you, because
Okay.
I think that what we are seeing now is a Doctor that is aware and gives that speech that this is something he has been pushed to. He has tried everything else.
Okay.
Where
But now he has the guilt. He has the guilt of killing him.
But now, unlike Time Lord Victorious, who would have just done it and not cared, this person sees the ramification of his actions and says, "This is what it is." So I'm not gonna. I mean, he's not gonna not have guilt over it, but at the same time, it's what had to be done.
Yeah, well, the doctor's always done what had to be done, and that's what caused the problem that the 15th had to take away.
Well, I agree with
And now
Jared
it's
that
started
there
over
is
again.
a much deeper meaning in where, this version of the Doctor is, and of course, we now know that the Doctor has existed on multiple planes in multiple versions, more than we even knew before.
Yeah.
Whether you like the Timeless Child or not, it just, I mean, this Doctor has existed and has experienced, and we began series 1, yes, with possibly a fresh outlook, and he has tried everything. He has attempted to be pushed in a corner, having no choice, making the most informed decision possibly a Doctor has ever had to make in his multiple planes of existence. And the end result, no, it's not pretty. And yes, we had a limited amount of time with which to answer it. And I've seen a lot of the chatter online, and I understand how people feel, and I get it. I hear you. I respect your opinions. But for me, this was exceedingly emotional and human and humane and compassionate. And even as he had no choice but to kill the entity that he did not want to, he had no choice. He had to do this. He had to become the monster, and then some. It was the deepest I think this character has possibly ever been, and I loved it.
The Doctor does what he has to do. I mean, he's done drastic things before. I does it bother me that he goes a little bit more angsty on it than maybe? I'm not sure. What happened. It doesn't bother me. I might have toned it down a little bit more, because it bothers the Doctor when he has to do something so drastic. And also, there's a line that's you can actually listen to when they're doing the playback, is that the other Osirans didn't want to execute Sutekh because they thought that would bring him to his own level.
Right.
So they decided to exile him and imprison him forever. So, and I guess those options weren't there. So we are where we're at. So that's where it is. I mean, it didn't interfere with my enjoyment of the story. I would have toned down the angsty. I mean, but then again, these were issues that were dealt with in Russell T Davis's first tenure. And it happens. That's all I got to say.
Now something after the defeat was really, I felt really good about. When Carla Sunday thanked the Doctor for bringing her home, bringing Ruby home, because he promised it at the end of Space Babies, and then in Rogue completely thought he broke that promise, and instead he's able to fulfill what he said. I mean, that was very heartfelt when that happened. I thought when she thanked him, that was beautiful. What did you guys think?
Yeah. Again, the strong emotions in this entire series.
Yeah. Okay, we kind of mentioned this at the beginning when we're talking about adoption and the way that works, finding Louise Miller. Now, it's funny because when I heard that and I was thinking, when I missed I didn't look at the caption, and I heard Lucy Miller.
Same here.
And I don't know, I know that Jared knows who that is. I know that Zion knows who that is. Lucy Miller is and Juan, a Big Finish character, a companion of the Seventh Doctor, and I was like, oh wow, no, they didn't do that. It was Louise, and that just killed me. Yeah, that was just not fair. But yeah, did you really? I understand. Maybe you understood it. Maybe you didn't understand why she wanted to go back to her mother, why she accepted her. But how did you feel about when she decides not to travel with the Doctor to be with her family, her adoptive and her real family?
Everybody knew she wasn't going to set
I
foot in
know,
that TARDIS,
I
so
know.
she had stuff to do. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody questioned that decision either,
Okay.
ever.
All right.
No.
All right.
Me neither. But like, my thing is like, is this going to be another situation where we have another companion that can have both sides of, hey, I get to have my family and then I get to be with
Well,
the
that is an
Doctor?
RTD specialty. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, my issue, I
Because
do.
you're traveling with the Doctor.
Okay.
I do have one issue with this, and it's just because now they filmed this a long time ago, and I guess they weren't expecting a leak when it turns out that she was still on the show.
Yeah.
When there was a press leak, because it just kind of comes off, and I don't know why.
Well,
RTD and John Nathan Turner did this to a break of a companion, because Time Flight, Tegan did the same thing, and it just I don't understand it. I'm not.
Okay,
I don't get
I can
why.
explain. I can point this out. So so the whole thing since Starbeast, everything has been a story, because he's at the beginning of Starbeast. This is a story about a Time Lord. In the Christmas special, story about a Time Lord. So the whole thing, and the finding of the mother and getting back with her is an end of part of that story. RTD has been quoted. Let me find the quote. He says that where is it? That this is a pause in her story, because it's not the end, it's a pause. And yes, I guess Tegan did do the same thing, but I think with Tegan, wasn't it that they weren't sure she was coming back? Wasn't there like a contract thing that she left, or was it just a choice? I don't even remember.
I have no clue.
Jared,
I don't remember hearing it on Doctor Who magazine at the time.
Jared, do you remember anything about this? Why they left Tegan off and then brought her back?
That sounds like they weren't sure.
Right.
That they weren't sure. That sounds familiar.
But
they had, because we had this exact same scenario with Jenna Coleman a million times during the Peter Capaldi era.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm leaving the show. We filmed the writing off. No, I'm staying. And so they have to go back.
To be fair, I think that only happened once with the Christmas special.
The Christmas episode, she was supposed to leave, and she said, I still want to stay in it, and he rewrote it. Yeah. But what we're saying is, I think that this time they knew she was. There was no contract dispute. This is part of this. This was as written. The original writing of the season, it was written this way. And speaking of stories, and we're running out of time, so we got to click on this real quick. So the story, everything is happy ending, and then the camera pulls back from the happy family and goes up to the roof, and there's a narration going, and of course it's Mrs. Flood. And even then, Mrs. Flood says this is the end of that story. But
you talk about the happy ending, and I wanted to bring up the interesting dichotomy from this episode.
Go for it.
Throughout all of Doctor Who history, the TARDIS has been the safe place. It is represented safety.
And this time it's
The only character that got killed was the one that was physically inside of it. Harriet at the end, when she gets blasted, she's the only one that doesn't come back. And she's physically inside the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Although the Doctor did off a Sontaran in the Invasion of Time with the DMAT gun
in Attack of the Cybermen.
Yeah, but there they kind of addressed it, saying that the whole concept of temporal grace was no longer working. Are we addressing the last scene with Mrs. Flood?
Oh yeah, which I loved, but I know people in my club did not love it. But
it's not that I don't love it. I do have a statement about it.
Okay.
It's not that I hate it. It's just like, okay, Russell T Davies is playing the old fans. I mean, and it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to feel about it because okay, dressing up Anita Dobson in practically what looks like a
The first
recreation of
outfit that
Mary
Tam wore.
Tam wore,
Yeah.
who played the original Romana, because this is something that I kept hearing, and actually I don't know. I heard it secondhand. I mean, I might have heard it from Radio Free Skaro
Mhm.
or other sources, because anytime you had a mysterious family, a mysterious female, it's
Mhm.
Susan, it's Romana,
Right.
and now
yeah.
now you're getting a blatant,
Yeah.
either deceit or
Yeah.
throwaway.
Well, it's not just...
or trick. I should not
Yeah,
throwaway, but it's
yeah.
a deception. It's a purposeful deception.
Clever
He's having a
boy.
good. He's having a clever. Well, somebody says clever boy,
She
suggested
says
it could be
yeah.
a Clara clone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I gotta point out, it wasn't just her wearing the outfit from Ribos Operation that Mary Tam wore. If you look at the cover of Big Finish's audio, The Sands of Life, she's got the same parasol that she's got.
I have one thing to say about
It's not
that.
her. I do not believe it's her.
I
I
have one-
100%
same
it's
here.
not Romana. I don't
Same
believe
here.
that.
I have
Or
a
Clara.
way to prove it. It's not a way to prove it, but it's a surefire indicator. Don't
Mhm.
forget that Romana's room was jettisoned.
Mhm.
Don't ever forget that. Her room somewhere floating out there in space.
Mhm.
I have an answer to that too.
Go, please. Go ahead.
No, let Zion.
Oh, okay.
No,
Cut.
no,
Go.
just that's it. I'm sure that this whole Romana thing is a shroud, but at this point I don't really care, because like I was like the way how Doctor Who works, we don't get seasons often, so like I was expecting at least something with this lady here, but no, we've been strung along like fish for the entire season, and
Well,
God knows when we're going to get the next season,
but she
and
definitely...
who knows if we're going to end it there.
But Mrs. Flood, the mystery continuing, she definitely said she has a plan. She had a plan before
Yeah.
she gets the Thanos. Or
And
Blitz,
also,
whatever we call it.
what I was going to say about Romana's room,
Mhm.
Jonathan Turner also answered that at an Omnicon. He believes that when you jettison space in the TARDIS, it just dematerializes forever and
Yeah.
never comes back and is
Yeah.
turned into energy. That was something he said at a convention. And actually, I'm surprised he had that response, because I don't know if John... I do question now, looking back, and Mark, you were there with me, and maybe
Yeah.
Jared
Yeah.
saw Jonathan Turner back in the day, whether John was comfortable asking those questions. I'm not sure. But then again, John loved being a ham.
Oh, he did.
And loved,
oh no,
and loved,
he
loved,
loved showmanship. Yes.
and he loved
And-
doing conventions.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, Romana's closet isn't the first one that Mrs. Flood has raided. She raided Rory's. She
Mhm.
raided, Clara's.
He's
Mhm.
been in them all.
Oh.
Yeah.
If I had to make an educated guess,
Mhm.
if it was someone known from Who canon,
Go for it.
based off of their actions and the current climate of the show, I would pin her as being the master of the land of fiction.
Yeah. Yes, I saw that you post. I saw your post. I was going to bring that up because he is basically the god of fiction. So it might be part of the pantheon. Yes, I saw that, Jared. That was actually a good thing you wrote. Yes.
I gotta question the master of the law of fiction, because all he was a pulp writer who got captured and then was trying to fix the computer that ran the land of fiction.
I'm just talking about characters from the history that historically would have the ability to break the fourth wall.
Mhm. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would know what they were.
And the master of land of fiction totally would do that.
This is from complete left field, but Iris Wildthyme.
That is from completely left field.
Iris would make sense.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't doubt that if that was the case and they had a flashback to Katie Manning, Katie would have taken that role and ran with it if she's doing it. So that would be cool. That'd be very cool.
And casting Katie would have been too telling for it.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I think we're about out of time. I just wanted to give one other interesting thing. I've talked about RTDs having all these concepts all in a ball before he went with it. I want to play the name game. And it's something I saw. Someone wrote this, and You know, and I'm like, maybe. But when I was watching it at the club meeting, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm 100% he's right. And I looked, and they are right. Imperial New Mars, one of Sutekh's disciples, was Ibrahim Naman. And now the unit guy, Colonel Christopher Ibrahim.
Oh,
Coincidence? I don't think it was a coincidence. I think RTD was going through his, what can I put? Let's put something into the Easter egg. Let's do something for everyone.
Although I will say at that one, once they're all back and everything's happy going out onto the helicopter, once Kate started holding hands with Colonel Ibrahim, I swear I heard every lesbian within a 10-mile radius of me scream in agony.
Yeah.
Because that's been the belief this entire time.
Yeah.
For Kate.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, still don't have the answer to that one. Will that be answered? Who knows if any of these ideas that we have about what's coming up are going to be answered? I know that I would say 1 out of 10. Vicky, this whole season, 1 out of 10.
9.
Zion.
7.
I'll agree with Vicky on a 9. Our guest, Jared, what would you give it?
8.
Okay. And, Juan has left the building for a moment, so I'm not going to ask him. But yes, we're out of time, guys. Thank you so much. I want to thank Jared Cooper for coming on as our guest. Thank you, Jared.
Not a problem.
Come on anytime you want. We'd love to have you here. Oh, and here's one. Juan, scale of 1 to 10 for the season.
A solid 8. I'm not damning of a faint praise. I was engaged with it. I enjoyed it. The only thing that I regret about it is, unfortunately, because of my friend's schedule, and unfortunately due to the fact that one of them is in the hospital, I haven't gotten to show it to my non-Disney subscribing or the Doctor. That was my tradition. No, I have 2 friends. It used to be only one friend, but then she brought a mutual friend, and we would since the Capaldi era, I would watch Doctor Who at least 2 times because I'd watch it with my friends who aren't engaged in BBC America or whatever the vehicle for Doctor Who in America was at the time. But I think I would give it a solid B. But I'll be honest to the public, it takes a lot for me to get pissed off. And I apologize. Did I break the rules?
No. We can say beep or
okay, but
we don't care.
No, it takes me a lot to not like something. I know that this is getting some mixed reviews. People I liked it. I mean, they admit that
I'm right there with you.
That this show, they felt that the last episode didn't land, although there were a lot of good things in it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it landed. I mean, this individual, the individual last 2 episodes, it's between a 7 and an 8 for me.
Okay.
But I'm not angry at it. I think it's only when you see something that makes you angry. To be honest, nothing has made me angry so far. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Let's see where they're going to go with it, or if they're going to go with anything. As I said, the only thing that I feel is that RTD is having a laugh at the older fans with that ending. And does he have a right? I'm waving my hands. I don't know. I'm giving you a shrug. I'm doing the shrug emoji.
He's doing the shrug emoji. All right. So once again, thank you, Jared, for coming on the show. On behalf of myself, Mark Baumgarten, Juan San Miguel, Vicky Jakubowski, and the acolyte of Sutekh himself, Zion Kuros, we're going to say goodbye to you, and we'll have another show within the next couple of weeks. Not Doctor Who in nature, but you'll enjoy it anyway. And I have to say this. Welcome all you under 30s to the world of Doctor Who. Bye, everyone. You've been listening to the Mark Who 42's Universe podcast, or as it's simply known, Mark Who 42's Universe. Hosting the show were Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, Zion Kuros, and Juan San Miguel. If you'd like to leave a comment for us, please email us at markwho42.42@gmail.com. Mark Who 42's Universe, copyright 2024.